Hello and welcome to FF News' FinTech Finance Virtual Arena. I am your host, Douglas Mackenzie, and on today's episode, we're going to be looking at an absolutely fascinating topic, and that is the trends in Asia Pacific region when it comes to payments, because it is an area I think we all are very, very aware that it is almost the groundbreaking part of the world where we see customer experience and customer demand really coming to the forefront of payments. And joining me here today, I have two experts right at the forefront of this topic. First up, we have Sandeep Lal, who's the head of digital payments at DBS Bank. Sandeep, how are you doing here today?
Very good. Delighted to be here, Doug.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on, Sandeep. And with that in mind, I don't suppose, could you, since it's your first time, could you introduce yourself to our audience? Could you tell us a bit more about yourself and your role at DBS, please?
Sure. I head the digital payments group in DBS. So what we do is look at overall payments. And in the last few months, I've been focusing especially on cross-border payments because we're trying to see what we can do to orchestrate it across the bank and drive turbocharge them with higher growth, and even look at some point of time seeing if we will take it external. Now, before that, I was doing the digital piece. That was the entire digital piece for the consumer bank. And so we drove out a lot of products from mobile banking. You know, we started a design team and a technology team where we built a whole lot of capability and focused on improving the experience in DBS and delivering what we said, making banking joyful. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years plus, making banking joyful for our customers. So I have done that. And before that, I was with PayPal, where I was in the early years of PayPal, did the operations and international business expansion. I joined in 2000, company became public in 2002. And after that, I was driving international payments for PayPal and eBay for the next 5 years. And then I started the office here in Asia.
Incredible, Sandy. I mean, that shows you really are right at the forefront of how payments have changed, especially over the last 20 years. And I love this DBS mantra of making something that humans actually want to do rather than not have to think about. So thank you so much for joining us, our podcast panel here today. And also we have Ellie Shoshani, who is head of APAC over at Bottomline. Ellie, how are you doing here today?
Thank you very much. I'm feeling very well and very excited for our discussions today. And I think this is a very interesting topic for all of us, especially for us at Bottomline, not coming from the banking side, banking more from the vendor and the service provider for the banks. So I think this is a kind of an area that we really focusing on the next few years, how this is going to change and everything. So being in this region for more than 25 years, working in this area and focusing on the banking and financial industry area, I think we're going to have a very interesting topics right now, especially with the changes that are going through Bottomline as well.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant kind of mix of chaps we've got here today on the banking side, on the tech side. I'm very excited to kind of bring both your guys' perspectives together and give our audience a real showcase in where the Asia Pacific region is heading. So guys, thank you so much for your introductions. To kick things off, I think I'm going to lean on the tech side and come straight to Ellie here and look at banking as a service, software as a service, and seeing how that has changed, in your opinion, how that's changed the role of a bank in Asia Pacific in recent years. So
if we take the recent activity, all right, even what happened in COVID and what we have in the last few years, we see that the banks have a trend of offering their services as a cloud services. Banks are more and more focusing, moving from traditional area, that's where we're focusing, into a cloud services. And I think that's even in DBS, the changes that are made in recently, especially for the cross-border payments, that allow them right now to do and provide more services into the cloud, helping us as a service provider to provide more services to the banks, not particularly for DBS, but for all the banks in the regions, where the banks don't need to develop and to move from core and to develop every few years for the changes, especially when the changes are coming more often. In the past, when the banks needs to change for a payment hub, they will take about 10 years until they move to the next one. Today, the changes happen every 2 years, and the changes are more rapidly and more instant that there needs to build, and it's take for the time for the banks to build it, especially because the banks is too much regulatory. It needs to go through a lot of processes in order for him to build changes, rather than we as a service provider or a fintech company come up with the changes that will apply to the region or apply to major banks that we have in this area.
Yeah. Now, I think that's a really interesting, decision to change, and I've got to kind of come to Sandeep and see, do you agree with Ellie's perspective there on that change?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, I think Ellie's spot on that cloud architecture and the ability to deliver multi-tenanted models and providing some comfort on security and encryption on data are the themes that have really driven this piece to SaaS-based technology. And it's allowed a lot of folks to provide specialized, better, cheaper, and more reliable applications. And, so we too, when we look at our portfolio of products and capabilities, where we see we are really feeling we got a really good product, we can scale it up, we can offer it better than people can build it. We've looked at commercializing that software. So as Ellie says, I mean, cross-border payments is one we started about a good 5-6 years back, and we created the service internally. And then when we saw it was working so well, we said, okay, let's package this and let's commercialize it. And with the technology on cloud architecture coming in, it makes it so much easier and so much more compelling. We're doing the same thing. We're looking at wealth planning also and saying, how can we do it? How can we look at offering our wealth planning advisory services to the mass segment, that is to the mass and emerging affluent segment, so that they, we can use it internally as well as look at selling it to those outside. So it's been exciting. This is good stuff, and it gives us the flexibility to offer even better solutions to our customers, because it's not only what we offer. Sometimes customers want something else which we can't offer, which is not our strength. So like accounting software. So we have examples where we've collaborated in the ecosystem with partners to offer our services as our payment services along with accounting software to say SME customers. And it's developing nicely.
It's looking like banks are now having to do everything. As you said, from accounting software, banks just want to really service their customers in the best way, and the least, with the most risk management, not having to offer up these insane levels of portfolios. And suddenly with collaboration, I think the banks will start to be able to do that, as we're seeing customer demand really drive that. So speaking to that role of ecosystems, then are we going to see, and I'm going to throw this out actually to both of you, do you think we're going to see increasing levels of collaboration and ecosystems in APAC, or do you think, for instance, like we see with payment systems in China like Weixin, we're going to see one mega app do it all, or are we going to see just a lot more collaboration?
Yeah, so I think we are going to see a lot more collaboration. I mean, when I go and I've developed this cross-border product capability, right? If I go to a customer and I say, hey, I'm going to sell you this great cross-border capability, they may want to just buy that. But they may also say, hey, cross-border payments is just one part of payments. I am an e-commerce platform. I have broader needs. I need to accept payments. I need to acquire cards. I need to do domestic payments. I need to do cross-border payments. And, we may be very good at doing domestic payments and cross-border payments. We may not have a great acquiring capability, in which case it would make sense for us to collaborate with someone and offer the full solution set and say, hey, fine, we don't have it, but we've got this full solution set and it's easy to integrate.
I would like to add a few more things. I think the driver is coming in from market drivers. and definitely from the clients of the bank. And they are demanding fast, instant, immediate solutions. And there is a lot of competitors in the market that coming up with solutions. So you can see a lot of demand coming from the clients. And what we're going to do, and working together by collaborations, is open with all we'll discuss about open API. Give the banks the ability to connect and to provide the services to them in much easier way, in a faster way, without them going to develop for the whole channels or developments and going for the whole process approval. So we start to see already quite a lot of area. I think we're starting to see it definitely with the large players, and more we'll see with the smaller one. I think the area it's coming into with DBS has a very big development team and quite a large of innovative idea that we're coming up. But the issue is coming also for smaller banks that aren't able to come and to develop all this kind of thing, but they still wants to be competitors and still wants to provide the services to the clients. And in this area, that's where we are coming and working together with the banks in order to provide these kind of services. When let them, the bank focusing on the real things they do. All right. So, and the area when the bank is the strength of it, and to provide to a larger corporate or to the SME better services that they can do.
It's interesting that you bring up timelines, Eli, because now that we're seeing customer demand increase, especially in APAC, timelines have to shorten. No longer can we have the same kind of bank rolling out a product after 3 years of working on it. I feel really sorry for both Sandeep and Eli. The timelines that are now demanded of you guys is almost absurd, especially when looking at cross-border and everything, interoperability on that side of things. So with that in mind then, what are the customer demands for financial institutions for improving cross-border solutions now that we're actually having businesses and retail customers alike demanding this? What are the demands that you're seeing? And I guess, Sandeep, if I could kick off with you on that.
Yeah, so on the cross-border side, I think you have really in some way two worlds. You have the big corporates who have traditional payments, large value payments, which we've always been traditionally very good at. And then you have this new world, which has started forming actually when the digital revolution started. And that's only amped itself up over the past few years, where you have what I call new economy players who are really driving the needs in the cross-border area. And who are these? These are people, really, these are e-commerce platforms or large platform companies. Could be e-commerce, it could be gaming, it could be content, etc., entertainment. And what you're having is that a lot of consumers are going to different platforms in different geographies, as well as SMEs going to different platforms in different geographies and transacting. And that's resulting in a lot of cross-border payment needs. And these cross-border transactions are usually low value. They're not high value. They're not like the $2 million ones where you don't mind paying $20 commission. So here they're expecting you to deliver capabilities where they can make payments instantly, and on instant receipt, the goods can be sent over, right? So you're looking for increasingly low value payments that are fast, that are cheap, and that are not, that are made safely. Now, that means that banks and providers have to come up with the right solutions so that you can enable people from multi-geographies, from various geographies, to be able to make the payments, and for SMEs to send back the payments and do that fast and instantly.
I think that today drivers is people want to have a full visibility on the transactions. People would like, in the past, when we were sending a package of DHL, we can track the package. But when we send a package of payments, of $1 million payments, it took us a lot of time. That's why we come with GPI and the idea to track where the payment it is. Second, we want to be it instantly. When we send a text message, we want immediately to receive a response from the other side that he acknowledged and received it. We would like to do the same on payment immediately and to do so. The second part is we want to make it very simple. We don't want to make it very complex to fill a lot of documents and for us to do it. So we need it very simple. And more important one, we want to make it secure. So whatever we do, we want that no one will be hacked our transactions. And if we do it instantly and we can't reverse the transactions, we want to do it in a very short time and very safe. So the driver is to have a very visibility on the transaction, very simple and very secure for us to do it. So that's the driver that's pushing banks and company like us to build a service that to be able to provide and to accommodate today's needs. Because even the large corporates, when they want to make payments, they want to make payments immediately. They cannot, we don't have anymore the luxury of T+1 that you used to be. Not in the local payment and definitely not on the cross-border payments that we do. So we start to build corridors of payment. We start to build different rails of payments. We're not always using the SWIFT as a cross-border payment. We can use different corridors. And for example, DBS for building its own DBS networks that they can do it within the regions and actually provide to their clients immediately payments by using cross-border payment, but within books to books, right? Rather than to do using a SWIFT network to do so. So here's another good example what we do. Visa B2B is also another good example. That's where they're coming to Institute with a different rail. And I think we cannot ignore anymore the idea of using the blockchain platforms. The blockchain 10 years ago was a kind of a word that no one should use it, and it's come kind of a bad word. Now we can see that blockchain is going to be used in the next 5 years. We don't see too many use cases. The only use cases that we saw far was around trade and finance, but not really on the payment. But when we can see that digital currencies, when we can start to see that virtual currency is start to use the blockchain as a platform, as a parallel to what we do in the banking industry will need to adopt this one and cannot ignore it as a future of payments that we do. And this is one of also big driver that happening in the market that's we cannot ignore. And I'm sure that we're going to talk later on about the digital currency that central banks start to provide in the regions and how we as a provider and the banks are using this one as a platform for us to pay and get paid.
Well, with that in mind then, Eli, can you tell me a bit more about the work that the central banks in Asia Pacific are doing to kind of facilitate this huge change to the very nature of payment rails then?
So if we will take it Singapore or even we take China, right? They realize that digital currency are coming. We want to more control of what's going on about the currency. We want to understand who is paying. We want to have less ATM machines. We want to have less printing papers. We want to have a full visibility, as I said before, about the transactions, who is paying whom, when and why, and what's the reason the payment has been made. And the banks have decided, okay, we need to make a play and to act the roles, the central banks, to create our own digital currency to do so. If we take, for example, for the Beijing Olympic, it will use only digital Chinese currency. Wasn't used any other currency can be used for that one, right? So we can see that literally, right, we are moving into a digital currency. We see it in Singapore, we see it in China, we see it in other countries as well, developing in it. It's a regulatory issues, but I think the bank will start to adopt that we have another currency to handle it rather than the regular one that we're doing it. And we, as bottom line, needs to be ready to be able to provide the services to the banks that people can pay and get paid with this digital currency that we provided by central banks.
Very exciting. I mean, that anecdote that the Beijing Olympics are going to be completely, effectively CBDC, and we've had years of people saying, "Oh, it's not coming," and now suddenly on the global stage you're seeing it. That's fascinating. But I think it's not just the rails that are changing, it's also the messages themselves that are changing. With ISO 20022, we're seeing the international standards actively change the way that payments are sent. So Sandeep, what are the opportunities that can come about for a bank to adopt adopt this standard now?
So, to the points that Eli made earlier, right? People are looking for instancy. They're looking for, complete transparency. Where's their payment? And they want this all to happen in a safe manner. So ISO 2022 really aims at achieving that, because it's aimed at standardizing the messaging formatting. It's aimed at making it structured and a lot richer. That means you have a lot more information. And the systems, if they're all standardized along the way, the aim is that you will get it through faster. It won't get held up. There won't be back and forths because you don't know, you don't have information on the sender of or you're not clear about the receiver not being a name which is sanctioned or not. So it's aimed at really sorting that out. So I think that it's and when you do these things, you also actually upgrade your technologies. So if I'm doing it in DBS, then I make sure that all the technologies I have are really, quote unquote, if I'm putting work in it, that they're state of the art, right? So as most people do that, you're going to find that the ability to interface to systems also going to be much more faster, real time. So I think that both in terms of overall speed, in terms of overall efficiency, in terms of compliance and sanction screening and all that, you will have ISO 2000 to meet all these over time. But as we know, this is a 5-year project, so we've got to wait till it all comes into play.
Yeah, I completely agree, Sandeep. It's such a monumental task. It's a 5-year task, and the whole world seems to be going at different speeds with it, despite it being a global standard. So with that in mind then, Ellie, what are the challenges with starting the journey to being ISO ready? Why do you see some institutions holding off, some already halfway through, some already at the end of that journey?
ISO 2022 is really a big change that been adopted by SWIFT for us to do, and been adopted also by local networks and become as a kind of a standard, because it's really enrich the payments. It's provide more information about the payments itself, and literally have the idea that in the future we can use this enrich messages for us to go furthermore and to provide more information to this one. Why the challenge is coming up? We're talking about very legacy systems that is not being adopted. We're talking about using the empty messages for quite a long times. We need to make a lot of changes internally, and we need to do a lot of conversion from MT to MX. SWIFT are driving these ones in a country's levels and regional levels, but in some stage, if you are not having the right message types, you will not be able to communicate with each other. So there is a big push coming up. I think SWIFT made it quite late on the journey. And suddenly they start realizing the thing to do. One of the main drivers for SWIFT to come up was actually the blockchain, because the blockchain, they have more information is rich to come up to the idea. When you actually acting on the block, this information is really more reachable than anything else. And they realize that they need to do something. If they don't do something, on the same times, if they want SWIFT moving everyone to provide all the services into the cloud, and in the cloud, you'll be able to provide AML and sanctions and secure payments on the cloud, you need to provide it with more rich enhancements information to do so. There is a challenges. There is a timeline that we need to in a race over here. And also not everybody is ready on time. And that's where we come in. If you provide the services as the cloud services or the SaaS services, the bank don't need to change this one. And this is where bottom line is coming, right? We be able to do for you the conversion. We will be able for you to do the enrichment of the service for you without you doing anything too much into your site.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're not embracing the bottom line solution, the issues are actually, as pointed out by Ellie, quite complex. Particularly, you're not, for customers, that means to enrich all the data, you have to change the channels. You have to train, educate users. For banks, apart from changing the payment systems, you have to also change all the other supporting systems, whether it's the channel system, whether it's the statement system, whether it's the compliance system, to handle all the extra information. And then, the some of the local clearing systems like Fed, etc., who may not be actually processing such a lot of cross-border payments, are not in a hurry to adopt it. So that also creates complexities. How do you handle it till they adopt it? So all this is quite challenging. But again, the North Star is well worth striving for and going for it, because otherwise we have too many inefficiencies in the cross-border system.
So Eli, I'm really interested. We've kind of been talking about this ecosystem, the shared ecosystem where various different institutions are looking at various different platforms or various different vendors to be able to just go to offer this incredibly diverse payment system. So, I mean, could you explain to us a bit more about this platformification of payments and where Bottomline sit in this?
So I think Bottomline sits in the area that's very comfortable for us to be, because we'll be able to have a kind of a multilaterals of channels to come over here. It's not only one method of payment that we can do it. We can get it from SWIFT, Visa B2B, and other methods that can come on the same platform that we can do and use it. And specifically when we come in right now to have alternative to banks, and Bottomline, we have developed this kind of a platforms that's literally, right, can give you more benefits that can come. And especially in Asia, when we're talking about, for example, about Visa B2B technology that you're doing, and in Asia, there is a lot of these exotic currencies that you need to address this kind of issue, and definitely from the FX point of view. And the smaller banks in Asia that really depends on this to be able to have a Nostro and Vostro account in the largest banks. These kind of platforms allow the banks to come in a much easier way to do it. And that's where Bottomline is coming into the pictures. If you combine all of it, right, this is, we provide payment, sanction screenings, provide multilaterals of channels to come and to provide us payment, to be able to do secure payments, all of it, right, in one single place, without you as a bank need to develop it. This is the strength that I think banks need to look at in the future, that's going to save them a lot of money, but on the same time, provide them services they're consuming while they're in a big competitions with other banks in the region.
Amazing. It's kind of like changing the engine while still flying, effectively, is how I see it. Eli, thank you very much. And yeah, we've talked about these challenges of implementing these processes, but what's the kind of the final goal that your customers, for instance, that on the corporate side of things, will be able to look forward to once all these processes have been put in place?
So I think really faster, cheaper, safer payments. So that's what everyone's looking for. Everyone in the world, whether it's consumer, corporate, they want to do everything faster. Instancy is a premium, So I think that's what, and like Eli said earlier, that it's T+1, T+2, all that is not acceptable. Everyone, is being driven by what they can do on their cell phone, and cell phone you can do everything on the mobile very fast, instantly, etc. So that expectation is there. So I think they can look forward to all that. They can look forward to the information. But I do think that in the longer term, as we look at customers and corporate customers, as I said earlier, their needs are going to be complex. They are going to be diverse. They are going to be looking for efficient cross-border payments. They're going to be looking for efficient acquiring. They're going to be looking for good FX rates. They're going to be looking for, reconciliations, cash management, treasury, all these pieces. And they are going to ideally not want to go to hundreds of providers that make it complex. They're going to want to go to someone who can deliver these, and not necessarily by themselves, but who can cobble them together, orchestrate them, and do it efficiently. So the technical side can't be understated, because it has to be what Eli was talking. The APIs should be easy to integrate into, and the discussion will be not with so much with the CFO, but with the product engineers who will make the decisions. So I think we'll have to morph ourselves, but that's what our customers will be looking for.
Very exciting. And earlier on, you mentioned Visa B2B Connect, and that was obviously introduced, I think, in 2019. Has that had an impact on cross-border corporate payments as well? Has that, fulfilled some of the kind of customer demands that Sandeep was just talking about there, and you talked about earlier in the conversation too?
So fintech companies and Visa B2B and other cross-border service provider that's going to come very soon around these ones to provide alternative in order to accommodate needs for clients, cheaper, faster, easier, and whatever it's required by the corporate as well as by the consumer themselves to do so. You can't build a network that Swift has built for over the last 40 years in 4 years, right? This is a time that needs to be built, right? But it's going to be faster. It's not going to take 40 years. It's going to take a few more years to come and to build it. It's like, in the past we used the fax machines, right? I can't use, if one guy they have a fax machine and the other one doesn't have, okay, what does that mean? I mean, you cannot send and receive any fax to anyone. Same with payment and connectivity free to go. But people use different type of rails. I think more area that we come and see that banks start to have a threat, because fintech companies start to provide other services for consumer and for corporates to do the cross-border payments in their own way to do so. And the bank needs to immediately to come and to adopt this type of solutions for them. Otherwise, they will stay behind, right? That we know already that the remittance can be done by Union Pay or can be done by Western Union or whatever it is. It's done already. We know it's part of them. However, when it comes to real high, heavy, how Sandeep said it, is high value and low volume, that the thing that's coming up. This is the area when the banks is focusing, but still there is a lot of low value and high volume transactions that's happening all the time. At the same time, you need to have to the consumer one single point of act for them to do it. Right, not to connect to too many providers and to connect to too many things. So either you go into the bank and the banks will provide you all as a one single entry that you sign on for the banks, or you come to a service provider that can use for you like a one single platform, so that all the services is happening over there. And like you choose like a TV channels, right? Which was the channels that you want to use and which of them you want to use later, but we'll be able to provide all the information you do. You don't want to use our AML, you don't want to use our sanction screenings, whatever, it's fine, but it's available for you to turn it on rather than to build it by yourself and to provide these kind of services to you. And this is something that we need to work closely with the banks. We are not competing with the bank. We are complementary the banks, right? We're not, and this is the area that's very important. We are complete, all right? So not compete, all right? We are complete with the banks and this type of area, and to provide them things to provide a better services to the clients, because time is short.
I think the banks would actually love that also, because I mean, frankly, when we started building our remittance capability out, we did look for providers who could do, your one connection and you could do more. And so I think that, when you talk about Visa and these other providers, it's good. And Visa, of course, is super in terms of delivering payments on cards. So, you could use the cards to charge the card, or you could, as PayPal and all use, they use the cards to pay back the money sometimes to consumers. But to send money to a card, I have to divulge my card details, which I may or may not want to do. And so that piece becomes a little more difficult. And I think the ability to deliver payments from one place to another, I think the fintechs and Visa and all are building it. It's early days. I think the fintechs have done actually a remarkable job so far. And I'd like to think that given that the banks have such direct access to the clearing system, and they have such direct access to the foreign exchange markets, and that they gurus on compliance and risk, that they should be able to put it together to deliver at least great rails on the banking network.
Yeah.
And you have to remember, not every bank is a DBS bank, right? And
yes, that's true. That's true. That's true.
Right.
We make banking joyful.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, DBS are world renowned for their mantra, and you guys really live up to it. But you know, and to Ellie's point as well, you know, not every bank is as good as what you guys put into the banking system. So guys, we're coming to time here, but I just want to say a massive thank you for both your insights. The Asia Pacific region, you know, traditionally on the retail side of payments has been so fascinating, and now we're starting to see it on the corporate side of things and the cross-border side of things, with so many different currencies, regulations interacting with each other. So you both are right at the heart of probably the most exciting part of corporate payments. So I want to say a big thank you, and I hope you've enjoyed your time as well.
Thank you,
very
Doug.
much.
Really enjoyed it. I hope that this was useful.
It was perfect. Thank you so much. And also a massive thank you to our viewers as well. You can catch the rest of the series and much more over at ffnews.com, and of course YouTube, but especially LinkedIn, where you'll see me in the comments. Big thank you, a big hand to Sandeep and Ellie. Thank you so much, and goodbye.